The confrontation left Motsi Isid increasingly agitated. His uncle approached him. What did she mean by, after all you did? What exactly transpired between you and that woman's family? Motsi retorted, not now. Concentrate on locating the children. However, the truth was perilously close to emerging. Needy watched all of this from a corner of the compound. She had arrived as soon as she learned that Yuna was missing, partly out of genuine concern. She did care for him, albeit selfishly, and partly due to her tendency to involve herself in his affairs. Yet, witnessing the turmoil left her bewildered. She returned home to her mother, tears of rage and disappointment streaming down her face. "Mama, they ran away. They ran away together," she exclaimed, throwing her hands up in exasperation. Madame Ego attempted to quiet her. "Calm down. Everyone can hear you. Let them hear," Needy thought. After all the trouble, after I tried everything, he chose to elope with that girl instead of staying and considering me. How could he do this?
Madame Ego sighed.
This is a serious issue, Needy. It is not about you at this moment. The boy and girl are missing. They could be in danger. Needy frowned. They are probably hiding somewhere, enjoying themselves while we are all worried sick. The notion made her feel nauseous with envy and frustration. Her mother shot her a stern look. That is enough. If you truly love Azuna, you should pray for a safe return, not speak ill of him at this time. Needy fell silent, sullenly. Deep down, she was indeed worried. The world outside their village could pose dangers for young people alone. And as much as she despised to acknowledge it, she did not genuinely want Azuna to be harmed. She merely wished for him to be distanced from Ojuna. She began to fret that perhaps their elopement would only strengthen their bond, and if they returned safely, would that soften the parents' hearts or harden them? It was all so unpredictable. Over the next day or two, Agilu was in a state of uproar. Such groups scoured the roads leading to nearby villages. They inquired with traders along the routes. They even dispatched messengers to town centers in case the couple attempted to travel by lorry to a distant location. Chick was interrogated by both parties. Meza took him aside on the first evening of the search. "Chick, you are Azuna's closest friend. Please tell me the truth. Did he mention anything to you about leaving? Do you have any idea where they might have gone?" Chick had anticipated this moment. He donned an exceptionally convincing expression of concern. "Uncle, I am just as surprised as you are. I never imagined they would go this far. Iduna only mentioned that he wouldn't give up. I assumed he meant he would continue trying to communicate with you or Mama. I swear I have no idea where they went." Mizodi squinted at him, as if attempting to see through any deception. "Think, boy. Did he ever mention any other town? Any friends outside the village?" Chick scratched his head. He had friends in various places from school, but he truly did not know which one he would choose to visit. Perhaps in Noi or Oben, or even Annika, where one of his cousins resides. They could be anywhere. This response contained just enough truth and ambiguity to keep Mizodi guessing. The mention of Oben one was merely one of several possibilities and did not particularly stand out. Later, Mama also approached Chick. She held Yunga's letter, which was already damp with tears. "Chick," she said in a quivering voice, "you would tell me if you knew anything, wouldn't you? I implore you. I am a worried mother." Chick felt a pang of guilt. He held Mama Yu in high regard and despised lying to her. However, he remained loyal to his friends. "Mama, I am truly sorry this has happened. Yujuna is like a sister to me. I do not know where they have gone. I only know they felt they had no other option." Mama tightly closed her eyes and nodded. "Very well, I cannot compel you. But if you hear from them or locate them, please tell them. Tell them I am not angry. I simply want them to return home safely." Her voice faltered on the final words. Tikkun almost revealed everything to her at that moment. Noticing her distress, yet he recalled Yujunwa's request for patience and understood that until the fundamental issue was addressed, their return would merely restart the cycle of prohibition and discord. "I will, Mama. I promise if I hear anything at all." For 2 days and nights, the search persisted without success. The couple had evidently planned meticulously, steering clear of main thoroughfares. It was on the third day that a farmer from Abinwan visited Aguila's market and, in a casual exchange, mentioned observing two unfamiliar individuals, a young man and woman, residing in an old hut adjacent to his field. Initially, he thought little of it, but when someone at the market brought up the missing lovers, the pieces fell into place. Soon, this information reached both Mama and Mazid, prompting them to set out for Abinwan independently, each accompanied by a small group. The race to find the children commenced, and although they did not travel together, their routes converged towards that neighboring village. Meanwhile, in the modest hut beneath the mango tree, Izuna and Eugenwa lived quietly and cautiously. The initial 2 days were marked by peace, yet tinged with anxiety. They collected water from a nearby stream and purchased a few yams and essentials from a local market using some money, maintaining a low profile by draping shawls over their heads and speaking sparingly. They prepared simple meals and shared their aspirations and concerns. At night, they often sat outside under the stars, leaning against one another, finding solace in the tranquil village life surrounding them. They felt as though their married life had already commenced. They awoke, dined, and worked together. One day, they assisted a kind elderly farmer woman with weeding in exchange for some vegetables. In those serene moments, they discovered a genuine happiness, liberated from gossip and parental expectations. Izuna would share jokes he had heard from Chick to elicit laughter from Eugenwa. Eugenwa would hum melodies while cooking, lifting Izuna's spirits. Yet, always lingering in the back of their minds was the awareness that this tranquility might not endure. They were concerned about their parents. Were they all right? Were they extremely sad or angry? Did they believe them to be dead or injured? Perhaps we should send a message just to inform them that we are safe, Ojuna proposed on the second evening, biting her lip. Izuna contemplated this. If we do, they will come for us immediately, he replied softly. I feel awful, but perhaps we need to wait a bit longer. If we remain away for a while, maybe they will come to value our absence and reconsider their stance. Yujuna sighed. I hope so. I left a letter, but I am so worried about Mama. Izuna embraced her. I understand. I am concerned about my father as well. He pretends to be strong, but he must be going out of his mind. He is not accustomed to not having his way. Yujuna rested her head on his shoulder. Do you think they will ever resolve their differences? Izuna gazed up at the sky. They will have to eventually, especially if we ever wish to return home. On the morning of the third day, Yujuna was sweeping the front of their hut while I was outside behind the hut chopping some firewood. The day appeared to be like any other, sunny and tranquil. However, that was when she noticed figures approaching down the narrow path towards them. Several individuals. Her heart leapt into her throat. She recognized the outline of one of them. Mama, you are you moving with determined speed and a short distance behind. Another group of figures, one wearing a distinctive heart, maze. It seemed both had located them almost simultaneously. Ojuna, she called out urgently. They are here, our parents. Izuna dropped the firewood and hurried to her side. He observed the approaching groups and felt a blend of relief and apprehension. It was only a matter of time, he murmured. Yujuna suddenly felt cold with anxiety. What should we do? Izuna swallowed hard. We confront them together. No fleeing this time. They stood side by side in front of their small hut, preparing themselves as Mama came into clear view on one side, accompanied by an uncle of hers and another man from Agilu, while Mazid stood on the opposite side with two of his men behind him. The two groups came together like two storms on the verge of colliding right in front of the hut where the young lovers stood. It was time to face the truth under the bright daylight. Beneath the shining mid-morning sun in a Binuan village, a tense silence enveloped the scene as the two factions from Agilu gathered in front of the small hut. Eugenwa and Izuna stood hand in hand, their backs against the hut's mud wall, confronting their parents. Mama's gaze flickered to Eugenwa, taking in the sight of her daughter to ensure she was safe. Eugenwa appeared unharmed, albeit somewhat weary and frightened. A wave of relief washed over Mama, but it was swiftly overshadowed by a torrent of emotions. Anger, concern, love, all intertwined. Mazid's eyes were fixed on Izuna, observing his son in tattered clothing, with a hint of stubble on his chin from days without a proper shave, standing defiantly beside Ojuna in this small compound. It pricked Mazizad's pride and also pierced his heart. This was his heir reduced to hiding like a fugitive. For a prolonged moment, silence reigned. The only sounds were birds chirping in the mango tree above and the distant lowing of a cow from a nearby farm. At last, it was Mama who shattered the silence. She stepped forward, addressing Ojuna. "My daughter, are you all right?" Her voice was gentle, quivering with concern. Ojunwa nodded slowly, her eyes brimming with tears at the sight of her mother. "Yes, Mama. I apologize for causing you worry." "You should be sorry," Mazid interjected sharply, directing his words at both young individuals. He pointed at Izuna. "You have brought disgrace upon me by running away like this. Do you have any idea how worried everyone has been? How could you act so irresponsibly?" Izuna stood tall, still holding Ojuna's hand. "Papa, we never intended to hurt you or Mama, but you left us with no choice." Mama straightened herself as well. Her expression was resolute now. "No choice. Ojuna, there is always an alternative to breaking your mother's heart." Ojuna's lips trembled. "Mama, my heart was breaking too. Each day without you and Papa Zod refusing to speak or accept. It was unbearable." Zil glared at her, referring to him as Paypod in a manner that suggested familial ties. "Young lady, nothing can justify this action. Do you believe that love is merely about fleeing and forsaking your elders? Both of you have acted selfishly." Yuna felt a surge of anger. "Selfish? We did what was necessary to remain together. We have pleaded. We have shown patience. Yet, both of you have refused to even clarify your objections. Instead, you have made our lives intolerable. How long were we expected to endure this?" One of Zod's men attempted to intervene. "Perhaps we should all take a moment to calm down," but Mazid silenced him with a raised hand. Mama stepped closer to Junwa. "Gather your belongings. We are returning home. We will discuss this day later." Ojuna shook her head and tightened her grip on Izuna's hand. "I will not leave without Izuna. Not unless you both grant us your blessing, or, at the very least, explain why we cannot be together." Mama Yu's eyes flashed with a mix of hurt and frustration. "So, you will defy me openly?" Ojuna exclaimed. I do not wish to disobey you, Mama, but I love him. Please, just tell us the truth. Why are you so opposed to this marriage? We have a right to know." Mazu made a dismissive sound. "We owe you no explanations. Children do not demand answers from their elders, especially not those who have behaved as recklessly as you two." Izuna felt years of respect and obedience clash with his desire for honesty. He took a courageous step forward, releasing Wajuna's hand to confront his father directly. "Perhaps we are reckless, but we are no longer children, Papa. We are adults who made a choice when you left us with none. We will not return to Agulu merely to sit in separate corners like prisoners of your silence." Mazid's expression darkened. "Izuna, mind your words." "Or what?" Izuna retorted, his voice escalating. "You would disown me? Go ahead. I would prefer disownment to being a pawn in whatever long-forgotten feud this is." Everyone gasped softly at Izuna's outburst. No one had ever spoken to Mazid in such a manner. Even Mazid appeared momentarily surprised. Mama also gazed at him in astonishment. She had always known him to be humble and respectful, yet she now recognized his desperation. Asuna's voice remained resolute. "Father, you taught me the importance of honesty and standing up for what is right. However, you conceal the truth from me and expect me to accept that the woman I love is unsuitable. You too, Mama," he said, turning towards her. "You instructed Ojuna to be truthful and strong, yet you are not being honest with her regarding your fears about this marriage." Mamao looked down at the ground while Matsi Isid's jaw moved, as if he were processing Izuna's words. It was Matsi Isid's uncle who ultimately stepped forward from the periphery. He had arrived with Matsi Isid and had been listening quietly. Isid, the uncle stated in a calm tone, "These children have a valid point. The time for pride and silence has passed. They have risked everything. The least we can do is provide them with an explanation." Mazid shot a sharp glance at his uncle. "Stay out of this, uncle. This is a family issue." The uncle let out a sorrowful laugh. "And what am I if not family? I was present. I recall the general outlines of what transpired back then, even if I do not know every detail. And I am aware that you have been harboring this bitterness for far too long." He moved closer to his nephew. "Look at them. Do you wish for your son to resent you forever? Because that is the outcome if you force him back without an explanation. He will never forgive you, and you will lose him." Those words struck Matsi Isid deeply. He prioritized legacy and his son's respect above all else. He turned to Mama, who was now silently weeping, then to Ojuna, who stood beside her mother with pleading eyes, and finally to Yuna, who regarded him with a blend of anger and desperation. Mama wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She spoke gently. "If you will not disclose the truth to them, I will. They deserve to hear it from one of us." Matsi Isid's face momentarily reflected panic. He was a man who had always maintained control over the narrative. The notion of his previous deeds being exposed by another person made him uneasy. He inhaled deeply, feeling as though he was teetering on the brink of a precipice. At last, in a subdued tone, he remarked, "Very well. You seek the truth? So be it." He advanced toward the center, positioning himself a few steps away from Endunwa. The assembly of people formed nearly a circle in the sweltering front yard, all eyes fixed on him. He found it difficult to meet his son's gaze as he commenced. "Many years prior, before either of you came into existence, I was a young man much like Yuna, proud, perhaps a bit overly confident. I possessed some wealth and influence even then due to my family and my enterprises. In those times, I fell in love with a young woman from Agulu." At this moment, his eyes briefly darted toward Mamauju before shifting away. "That woman was Obianu, whom you know as Mamao." Ujunwa's eyes widened in astonishment as she turned to her mother. Izuna also glanced at Mama Oju and then at his father, attempting to envision them as young and in love. Mama shut her eyes, silent tears cascading down her cheeks. Matsi Isid continued, his voice laden with reminiscence. "I pursued her with all my heart. I wished to marry her. I believed my affections were reciprocated, but I was mistaken." He grimaced slightly. "Abjanga did not select me. She opted for another man, Odish, Ujuna's father." A soft gasp escaped Ujunwa's lips. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle were falling into place within her mind. The manner in which her mother reacted to Matsi Isid's name, the reason her father's name caused him to freeze upon its mention. Izuna felt a shiver. He had always known his father to be proud, yet picturing him as a young suitor who was rejected was peculiar, and yet it made a certain sense. Matsi Yod's voice diminished in volume. "Years later, Odish, your father, Ojuna, encountered some financial difficulties. He had taken out a loan, and there was some land involved. I recognized an opportunity to settle old scores." Mamaju, her head lowered, murmured, "Reveal the entire truth, Isid." There was a subdued fury in her tone. Matsi Isid nodded, shame washing over his features. "I called in a debt that perhaps I could have found it in my heart to forgive. I took back the land where their home once stood. Legally, it belonged to me due to an agreement, yet morally, it felt like a cruel act." He swallowed. After he passed away, he hesitated, and this time a tear genuinely formed in the corner of the stern man's eye. "Following his death, I heard the murmurs. Some claimed I was responsible for his demise, despite the fact that I never laid a hand on him." Mama opened her eyes, filled with sorrow. "You did not kill him with a weapon, it is your day. However, you caused his death through heartbreak and stress. We lost everything. My husband lost his life, consumed by worries about debts and our living situation." Her voice was soft, yet each word struck like a knife. Hizuna gazed at his father in horror. "Papa, is this true?" He struggled to reconcile this narrative with the man he had known. Mazier could not raise his eyes. It is true that I reclaimed what was rightfully mine, and I regretted it upon hearing of his passing. He sighed, but by that point, my pride prevented me from apologizing or returning anything. Abanuju and her child, he gestured towards Ujuma, departed from Agilu. I heard they went to her maternal village for many years. I did not see her again until she returned quietly some time later, keeping to herself. We never mentioned it. Life continued. Mamaju added softly. Life continued. Indeed. I returned to Agilu only after several years when I had nowhere else to go. I constructed a hut at the village's edge and raised my daughter, avoiding unnecessary interactions with those who had wronged us. She looked directly at Mizudi. We lived in silence, bearing our pain while you thrived on the land you seized. Each word weighed heavily on everyone present. Even the other men who had come along, who might not have been aware of this history, appeared uncomfortable or shocked. Chika, who had indeed followed at a distance out of concern, arrived mid-story without anyone noticing. Now standing behind a tree, mouth agape in disbelief. He muttered to himself, "So this is the matter." Oh God. Ujuma felt as though she were seeing her mother and realized that a young woman had wronged a widow who had been cast aside. She approached Mama and wrapped her arm around her, both of them trembling. Izuna recoiled in disgust and pain, sinking down onto the log that he and Ujuma had used as a bench during those nights. All of this stemmed from an old love triangle, he said bitterly. Papa, how could you? His voice was filled with profound disappointment. Mazud slowly advanced towards his son. Izuna, you must comprehend that when pride and heartbreak intertwine, men act foolishly. He suddenly appeared much older, resembling a grand tree struck by lightning. Izuna looked up at him, tears now brimming in his eyes. Foolish actions. You have shattered a family. You expelled them from their home, and you wished for me to distance myself from Ujuma for what reason? Because she is the daughter of the woman who spurned you, or because you felt guilt and did not want a reminder. That struck a chord. Mazu lowered his head. Both, he replied softly. I did not want a daily reminder of my actions or of the pain I endured. Furthermore, I believed our families should not intermingle after all that animosity. I thought it would only lead to further suffering. Mama now stepped forward, holding Ujuma's hand for support. When I recognized Izuna's father as the man who ruined my home, I was filled with dread that history would repeat itself. I did not want my daughter to endure anything at his hands or within his household. That is why I refused Ojuna, she said, turning to her daughter. Not because you or Yuna did anything wrong, but out of fear. I was still that wounded young woman deep down, and I thought I was safeguarding you by saying, no. Ujuma embraced her mother tightly. Mama, I am so sorry you had to endure all of that. Maisie's uncle broke the ensuing silence, exhaling deeply. At last, the boil has burst. The secret is revealed. He approached Mama and Yue and Nuju child, addressing Mama with respect. I remember you and Odichi as such a joyful couple. None of us anticipated that events would conclude in such a manner. I sincerely apologize for my role in not intervening to stop Maisie Day at that time. Mama nodded in silence, acknowledging my remorse. At that moment, Maisie approached Mama directly. His once imposing figure appeared diminished somehow. Obanyu, I understand that my apology cannot restore your husband or reverse my actions. However, I am profoundly sorry. The words initially emerged hesitantly, but then gained strength. I have wronged you and your late husband. I have wronged your daughter by attempting to keep them apart out of pride and fear. I am committed to doing everything within my power to rectify this. He gradually knelt on one knee before her, a startling sight for all present, as this was a man who had never knelt before anyone. Please forgive me, he implored, his voice trembling. Mama gazed down at Mizudi, the man who once pleaded for her affection and subsequently inflicted so much pain upon her. Witnessing him kneeling with genuine remorse in his eyes, she felt a surge of years' worth of anger and grief. Part of her yearned to scream at him, to strike him, to make him feel the pain she had endured. Yet another part, the part that had nurtured a daughter with patience and love, the part that had survived and persevered, whispered that this was the moment to release the past for her daughter's sake, if for no other reason. Eugenia gently placed a hand on her mother's shoulder. "Mama, I understand this is difficult, but forgiveness is the only path forward now," she murmured. "Mama, would you close your eyes for a brief moment?"
When?
She reopened them. Tears flowed freely. She nodded softly. "I will attempt to forgive you," she said quietly. "I cannot guarantee that the pain will disappear today or tomorrow, but for the sake of our children, and for the well-being of my own heart, I will allow the past to rest." Aizu exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He rose to his feet, and unexpectedly, Mama extended her hand to him. They shook hands solemnly, an unspoken understanding that the feud had come to an end. Izuna and Ojuna observed in astonishment and relief. Izuna approached his father and, for the first time in his life, witnessed tears on the older man's face. The sight of the man's face was humbling. "Papa," he began, but his emotions overwhelmed him. Matsuo embraced his son tightly. "My son, I apologize. I never intended for you to endure the consequences of my errors. I believed I was safeguarding you, yet I realize now that I was merely repeating the past." Eugenia embraced her mother and then shyly glanced at Matsu. He turned to her and softly asked, "Eugenia, can you ever forgive an old man's folly?" With tears of relief glistening in her eyes, Eugenia nodded. "Yes, Papa," she replied, testing the word for him. "It feels right now." He smiled and then let out a short laugh of disbelief at how everything had unfolded. "You truly possess a good heart. Both of you young ones." Unable to restrain himself, suddenly whooped and leaped from his hiding place. "Ha, finally," he exclaimed, startling everyone. "I thought I would burst if I had to remain silent for another second." Izuna looked at him in astonishment. "Chick, you are here." Chick dashed over, beaming widely. "Yes, I followed because I was concerned, and thank God I did. I got to witness the grand finale." He playfully slapped Izuna on the back and laughed joyfully, then bowed comically to Mama and Matsu. "Well done, elders. Honesty suits you well." Laughter mingled with tears as everyone felt a profound sense of relief, as if a dark cloud that had loomed over them had finally dissipated. One of Matsu's men cleared his throat. "Sir, should we begin our journey back to Aguilo?" Matsu nodded. "Yes, let us return home together." He looked at Eugenia and Izuna. "If you two wish to join, that is, I do not want to impose." Yuna took Yue's hand, and they exchanged smiles. "We are coming home. We never intended to leave permanently. Just until matters were set right," Izuna responded. Eugenia added, "Thank you, Papa." Then she turned to her mother. "Thank you, Mama." Mama managed a faint smile. "This is all I ever desired, for the truth to be revealed. Now we can genuinely move forward." Chick rubbed his hands together. "Yes, let us proceed home. I am certain we all require a hearty meal after all this drama." Everyone chuckled lightly, the atmosphere becoming even more cheerful. They collected their few possessions from the hut. Izuna took the time to express gratitude to the local farmer who had indirectly aided them by not causing any disturbances. They planned to send him a gift later as a token of appreciation. As the group commenced their journey back to Aguilo, Izuna and Ojuna strolled side by side, their hands intertwined. Behind them, Momoju and Mazio walked together as well. Although they were not precisely friends, a newfound understanding and respect had developed between them. Chick moved ahead with enthusiasm, discussing the celebration that should take place upon their return. "We must sacrifice a goat, or at least several chickens. The prodigal children have come back. Not that you two are prodigals, but you understand, food must be abundant." Yuna laughed, feeling genuinely joyful. Ojuna rested her head against his shoulder for a brief moment as they walked, feeling content and thankful. Thus, under the midday sun, they made their way back to Aguilo, no longer as broken-hearted individuals or feuding families, but as people who confronted the truth and opted for love and forgiveness over pride and secrets. The most challenging part was behind them, yet a new chapter was on the horizon. Agilu was about to witness a union it had deemed impossible, thereby healing a wound that had persisted for decades. The return journey to Agilu was filled with a serene joy and fatigue. By the time they reached the village, news had already circulated that Ojuna and Yuna had been found and that peace had been restored between the families. Inquisitive eyes peeked from huts and compounds as the group passed by. Some villagers emerged to welcome them along the way. At one moment, an elderly man from the village, who recalled the old feud, raised his hands to the heavens in relief upon seeing Mama walking alongside Matsi Zoe.
Chimmontak.
My God, the unthinkable has occurred. The snail and the tortoise are walking together, he exclaimed, employing a playful metaphor for two individuals who once could not see eye to eye. Chick, ever the jester, called back, yes indeed, and soon we shall feast for it. Everyone laughed. Upon arriving at Mamaji's compound, Matsi Zod insisted on entering for the first time. This act held significant meaning. He had never set foot in her home, nor had she in his, due to the lingering animosity. Now, he respectfully took off his sandals and stepped into the modest hut. Inside, he surveyed the simple furnishings, the tidy clay pots, and the mats. Memories flooded back of the much larger house she once shared with her husband on the land he had taken. A wave of remorse washed over him. Abanuju, he said softly, using her full name for the first time in many years. Tomorrow, I will summon the elders and arrange for the official return of your husband's land to you. It is long overdue. Mama's eyes widened slightly in astonishment. Despite her forgiveness, she had not anticipated that he would reverse the previous transaction. You would do that? Mazid nodded gravely. I will. I have no use for it. And even if I did, it rightfully belongs to you. Let this be my act of atonement. Tears glistened in Mama's eyes once more, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Thank you, she replied softly. Those words carry the weight of many years. Eugenia smiled and stepped forward. Mama, that means we can rebuild on our own land, she said excitedly. She could already picture a new house, perhaps where she and Ia might even reside. Izuna wrapped an arm around his father, feeling proud of him in that moment. Thank you, Papa. This means a great deal to all of us. CH wiped away an imaginary tear and sniffed dramatically. This is too sweet. My heart is melting like butter on hot yam. Laughter erupted, lightening the emotional atmosphere. They did not linger for long, as everyone was weary. Matsi had his men escort him back home. Mamao and Eugenia remained in their home, embracing each other in relief. Before departing, Mazid turned to Mamauju. Tomorrow, we will also meet properly to discuss the marriage rights of the children. I believe we have postponed that long enough. Mama nodded with a gentle smile. Yes, it is time to allow the young ones to experience their joy properly. That evening, Agilu was abuzz with the news that the feud had concluded and a wedding was imminent. Those who had been following the saga were elated. A touch of scandal and drama had transformed into a joyful resolution. Everyone appreciates a compelling tale of reconciliation. Needy received the news from her friend Amara, who had come to her house specifically to share it, carrying a slight air of smugness since Needy had previously been so confident. They're back, and guess what? Matsi Zod is even returning their land and blessing the marriage, Amara exclaimed. Needy managed a forced smile. That's wonderful, she replied through slightly gritted teeth. After Amara departed, Needy closed her door and stood in silence, grappling with a confusing blend of emotions. She felt relief that Izuna was safe, bitterness that he was now truly lost to her, and oddly, a small measure of admiration for Juna's bravery. Sitting at her vanity, she gazed at her reflection in the mirror. I made a fool of myself, didn't I? She murmured to her image, recalling her public outbursts, the blockages of paths, and the accusations of charms. her cheeks flushed with shame at the recollection. The following morning, as promised, Mazid convened a meeting with several village elders as witnesses. In the presence of Mamauju, he officially returned the deed to the disputed land. He also figuratively handed her the keys, as it was land and not a house, along with a compensation payment for the years of suffering. Bags of grain, a few goats, and a sum of money were included. It exceeded what was necessary, but he insisted, "I cannot restore the past, but I hope to secure your future." Mama Oju accepted with gratitude. "My future is my daughter's future," she stated. "We will utilize this to create something beneficial for them." The elders nodded in approval. One of them remarked, "This is a good day for Agulu. An old wound has healed. Let these families thrive together." With that matter resolved, the conversation shifted to the marriage. Traditionally, the groom's family would formally visit the bride's family home for an introduction. However, considering the exceptional circumstances, they opted to hold a joint gathering at the village meeting hall to prevent any potential awkwardness regarding the venue. That afternoon, the introduction ceremony was conducted. It was straightforward and primarily a formality at this stage. Matsi Zod brought along some of his relatives, and Yuna publicly requested Juna's hand from Mama and Hakim. One elder humorously inquired, "Zod, are you asking on behalf of your son or yourself?" This prompted laughter to ripple through the hall, and Mazid chuckled, raising his hands. "I am merely the messenger for my son this time, I assure you all." Mama Oju then expressed her acceptance, stating, "If my daughter agrees, I agree," accompanied by a smile. Ojuna, who was seated quietly in a beautifully patterned dress adorned with her mother's coral beads, shyly nodded to indicate her agreement. Izuna, with his eyes sparkling, could not help but gaze at Juna. He appeared as though he wished to sit closer and hold her hand, but in the formal atmosphere, he restrained himself to broad smiles. They scheduled the traditional wedding for a few weeks later to allow ample time for preparations. This was set to be a significant event, as Matsi Iodi's only son was marrying, and half the village felt personally invested after all the preceding drama. CH was predictably assigned a role on Izuna's wedding committee, primarily to keep him occupied, as otherwise, he would simply linger around inquiring about food. His official responsibility was to assist with entertainment and refreshments. In practice, he interpreted this as needing to taste test everything. "I must ensure the jollof rice meets the standard and that the palm wine is the sweetest," he declared with importance, earning him eye rolls and laughter from those around him. Indy mostly remained in the background at this point. She did not attend the introduction, citing a headache as her reason. Some speculated that she might create a scene, but she chose to stay away, nursing her wounds in solitude. A few friends visited her, anticipating a display of rage or tears, but instead, she calmly stated, "It's done. I lost. There is no need to dwell on it." There was a subtle sorrow in her tone, yet there was also a sense of acceptance. In reality, witnessing the extent to which Yuna and Yujuna cared for one another, and how even the formidable Matsi Iod yielded to that love, made her understand that she never truly had a chance. It wasn't that Yujuna had employed any charms, rather, their love was simply that powerful. It was a difficult truth to accept, but accept it she did. One evening, just a few days prior to the wedding, as the village buzzed with anticipation, Inidi took a stroll to clear her mind. She came across Yujuna returning from the seamstress, holding her custom wedding attire carefully wrapped in cloth. Yujuna paused when she spotted Inidi, uncertain of what to expect. Inidi mustered a smile and greeted her.
"Good evening."
"Good evening," Inidi responded courteously. They stood facing one another, with awkwardness hanging in the atmosphere. Eventually, Inidi spoke, her voice softer than Yujuna had ever heard it. "I owe you an apology." Yujuna blinked in astonishment. "No, you don't need to. Please allow me to say this. I said awful things to you. I was blinded by jealousy. You did not deserve any of it. You are a good person, and I clearly recognize that. I was simply too self-absorbed to understand why he did not choose me." Yujuna shifted her package to one arm and reached out to lightly touch Inidi's shoulder. "It's all right. I forgive you. I know it wasn't easy for you either. Enidi let out a small laugh that was half sob. You are kind. I hope you both will be very happy. She swallowed hard. I think I will be going to stay with my aunt in the city for a while after the wedding, just to clear my head and start anew. Yujuna nodded in understanding. I truly wish you well. I hope you find your own happiness. Enidi managed a sincere smile, perhaps the first that Juma had seen from her that was not laced with sarcasm or scheming. Thank you. With that, Enidi excused herself and walked away, fading into the dusk with a calmer heart than she had experienced in a long time. The days passed swiftly. Both families were engaged in preparations. Mama Oju, along with several neighboring women, crafted Yujunwa's wedding accessories. They created beautifully woven headgear and additional coral bead bracelets borrowed from relatives. Yujuna's aunties, or the nearest equivalents, older women who were friends of her mother, taught her the dances she would perform and instructed her on how to carry the ceremonial cup of palm wine. Meanwhile, Izuna received guidance from his uncles on how to conduct himself during the ceremony. He was advised not to rush forward like a famished man when she approaches to offer the wine. Instead, he should walk slowly with pride and greet all the in-laws appropriately, even lying prostrate if necessary. He rolled his eyes with a smile, stating, I will do whatever it takes as long as I end up married to her at the end of the day. Finally, the eve of the wedding arrived. Traditionally, each family held its own private gatherings that night. Mama sat with Yujuma in their hut, offering motherly advice. They lit a small oil lamp and shared a simple meal. Then Mama said, My daughter, tomorrow you will become a wife. I have imparted all my knowledge to you. Marriage demands patience, love, and understanding. Never forget who you are the daughter of. And remember, regardless of the joys or challenges that arise, this is your choice and your love. I bless you with all my heart. Yujuna embraced her mother tightly, both feeling emotional. Thank you, Mama. I will make you proud, and I won't be far away. I will still come by every day to check on you, you know, she added, aware that she would be moving to Yuna's home, which was in the same village. Mama chuckled lightly, saying, I know. And with the land returned, perhaps we will build a larger house for all of us to share one day. Meanwhile, at Matsi Eza's house, Izuna received last-minute pep talks from Chick and some cousins. Chick was particularly focused on practical matters. Have you tried on your outfit? Ensure it is not too tight, or you won't be able to dance. And remember to smile until your mouth hurts. People will be watching you. An older cousin offered him advice. Your life will transform, Izuna. However, it is a positive transformation. Treat your wife with kindness. A content woman leads to a joyful home. Izuna responded earnestly. I will. I have waited this long and fought this hard for her. I am determined to make her very happy every day. Matsi Izad listened quietly from the corner, his heart filled with a mix of pride and remorse. After the others departed, he called his own son aside for a private conversation. My son, tomorrow marks a significant day. I want you to understand that I have never been prouder of you. You have demonstrated true strength by holding on to love and truth. It has transformed me for the better. Yuna felt moved. Thank you, Papa. That means the world to me. His father continued. I also wish to express that your mother, if she were present, would be pleased as well. She always desired for you to marry for love rather than status. I believe she would have even appreciated Yujuma's mother had they met under different circumstances. He chuckled softly. Izuna smiled. I think so too. He paused and then said, Papa, I am grateful that we have our family reunited. I know Mama is watching over us with a smile. They embraced, father and son, both prepared to embark on a new chapter in their family narrative. That night, both Yujuna and I barely slept due to their excitement. The real celebrations would commence tomorrow, and they would truly begin their lives together without any remnants of the past overshadowing them. The morning of the wedding day arrived bright and clear, as if even the heavens were rejoicing for Agiloo. The village buzzed with excitement. Women rose before dawn, pounding yam, slicing plantains, and wrapping steamed bean cakes in banana leaves. Men erected canopies made of palm fronds and carried chairs to the open area near Mazia's compound where the festivities would occur. Children ran about, laughing and attempting to sneak peeks at everything until they were shooed away to wash and dress in their finest attire. Yujuna awoke before her mother gently shook her. She had scarcely slept, her stomach fluttering with anticipation. Mama assisted her with bathing, and subsequently, they commenced the extensive task of dressing the bride. Inside Mamaja's hut, 2 neighboring women and one of Yujunwa's cousins lent their support. They applied fragrant shea butter to her arms and shoulders, imparting a soft glow to her skin. A beautiful George wrapper, a richly patterned cloth, was tied around her waist, while another matching piece was draped and pinned over one shoulder in a traditional sash style. Her blouse was crafted from lovely velvet in a deep purple hue, which complemented the gold accents of the wrapper. Next came the coral beads. Mama adorned Yujuna's neck with a large, intricate coral bead necklace, the very same one Mamaju had worn at her own wedding years prior, passed down from her mother. Yujuna also sported coral bead bracelets on each wrist, and smaller beads were woven into her hair, which had been styled in an elegant bun with a few loose curls framing her face. One of the neighboring women ululated, producing a high-pitched celebratory sound when Yujuna was finally dressed. "Our bride is ready," she sang out. Yujuna gazed at her reflection in the small mirror that had been propped up. She could hardly recognize the elegant woman staring back at her. "Is that truly me?" she wondered, feeling a blend of joy and nerves. "Mama, do I look all right?" she inquired softly. Mama's eyes glistened with happy tears. "You look beautiful, my daughter. Any man who sees you today would wish you were his. Too bad for them. You belong to Izuna." She winked, causing Yujuna to giggle and blush. Outside, the sound of drums began to resonate. The cultural music group had assembled and started to play a gentle rhythmic beat to create the atmosphere. Guests from both Agulu and neighboring villages began to arrive in their vibrant attire, greeting one another and finding seats beneath the canopies. Mazazel, adorned in a grand agata of royal blue with a matching hat, was busy welcoming distinguished guests, including the chief of Igwe village, who had come to bless the occasion. He felt a sense of pride, yet there was a hint of anxiety as he ensured everything was flawless. Meanwhile, Izuna was preparing in his own quarters. Chick was by his side, embodying a mix of a best man and an annoying brother. Izuna donned a crisp white traditional shirt adorned with gold embroidery, complemented by a dark red wrapper tied around his waist. A red cap, traditionally worn by Igbo men of status and often by grooms, rested on his head. He also wore a string of coral beads around his neck, a gift from Mama, symbolizing his inclusion in her family. Chick adjusted the cap on Izuna's head for the 10th time. "It's straight." Izuna laughed, swatting his hands away. I know. I'm just ensuring you look as perfect as possible since you are the groom," Chick replied with a grin. He stepped back and gave a mock salute. "You resemble a true prince, my friend." Izuna inhaled deeply. "I feel as though my heart is beating louder than those drums outside." Chick joked, "Cold feet. It's not too late. We can still escape to the city and start a plantain chips business." Yuna playfully shoved him. "Stop teasing. You know I've never been more certain of anything." Jig patted his back. "I know. I'm just joking. Let's get you married before your father thinks you've run off again." A herald arrived to announce that the bride's party was nearing the venue. This indicated that Yujuna, her mother, and her family would soon be entering. Everyone took their positions. Izuna moved to a special spot designated for him and his parents, facing the crowd. He attempted to remain still, but Chick, seated beside him, noticed him nervously bouncing his knee. Chick leaned over and whispered, "If you keep shaking like that, people will assume you need to use the restroom." Isaiah chuckled and forced himself to relax. "I just want to see her," he whispered in response. Then, the bride made her entrance. A group of women from Yujunwa's side, including aunties, cousins, and friends, danced in first, singing a traditional wedding song. They moved with elegance, clapping and swaying their hips to the beat of the aqua drum and the metal gong. In the center of the procession was Yujunwa, walking slowly with her eyes modestly cast down. She held a large cup carved from a calabash in her hands, filled with palm wine. The crowd erupted in cheers at the sight of her. People ululated, and men shouted their admiration. "O Malikanwar, beautiful girl," some women called out, admiring her attire and grace. Izuna felt a lump in his throat as he beheld her. She appeared like a vision, both regal and radiant. His heart swelled with so much love and joy that he thought it might burst. Mazazel glanced at his son and noticed the utterly smitten expression on his face, prompting a smile as he nudged him lightly. "Hold yourself together, son." Now came one of the key rituals of the traditional Igbo wedding, the bride's search for her groom with the palm wine. As the music played softly, Mamaju filled the calabash cup with sweet palm wine, whispering a few words of blessing to her daughter before returning the cup to Yujunwa. Guided by two of her friends, Yujunwa began to dance gently through the gathered crowd. According to tradition, she needed to locate her groom among the people and offer him the cup to drink, signifying her choice of him above all others. He sat on one side of the arena, attempting to appear as calm as possible. It was part of the fun that sometimes the bride would feign ignorance of the groom's presence at first, teasing him a little. The crowd was already chuckling in anticipation. Would she approach him directly, or playfully evade him? As Yujunwa danced, a few playful male relatives and friends emerged in her path, gesturing as if to say, "Come to me. I am your groom." One of them was Chika's older brother, who leaped forward with open arms. Yujunwa laughed and shook her head, moving past him. The spectators erupted in laughter. Then, predictably, Chika himself could not resist joining in. He stepped into her path and performed an exaggerated bow. "My lovely wife, I have arrived," he declared dramatically, prompting an eruption of laughter. Yujuna placed a hand on her hip and tilted her head at Chick, engaging in the playful banter. "Hu," she said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. "But where is your beard? My husband at least has a fine mustache." The audience roared with laughter as Chick pretended to be offended, rubbing his bare chin. "Isuna has taken my beard," Chick exclaimed, stepping aside. "Go on then, find that thief." Even Mazid and Mama were laughing heartily. Eventually, Yujuma danced her way through the crowd and approached where I was now standing. He had risen, unable to remain seated as she drew nearer. She smiled up at him, her eyes sparkling. The playful teasing had come to an end. In this moment, both their hearts were entirely serious. She knelt slightly and presented the cup to him with both hands. Izuna accepted it, his hands trembling slightly. He gazed into her eyes and whispered softly for her ears alone, "I will love you forever." He then drank from the cup, savoring a long sip of the palm wine. A cheer erupted from the gathered guests. Gunshots from local hunters rang out into the air, a celebratory tradition, firing blanks. The band began to play a louder tune, and joyful chaos briefly took over as people celebrated the symbolic union that had just occurred. Izuna left a small amount of wine in the cup as tradition required, and Yujuna took it back, sipping the remainder to signify her acceptance. Then Izuna lifted her from her kneeling position, and they stood side by side, beaming. The elders from both families approached to offer their official blessings. Mama embraced her daughter, and then Yuna. "Take care of each other, you hear?" she said, smiling through tears. Mazia placed his hands on the couple's shoulders. "May your home be filled with joy, and may you never lack." "You have my blessing always," he said warmly. One by one, uncles, aunts, and elders offered brief prayers and advice. The chief of the Igwe delivered a brief address regarding how this marriage represents unity and forgiveness within the community. It has been observed that when the truth is revealed, peace ensues. He declared, "Let this marriage be graced with truth and peace." With the formalities completed, it was now time for the genuine celebration to commence. The reception included a feast and dancing. Chairs were removed to create a larger dance floor, while the couple went to change into their second outfits, a common practice at many weddings. Yujuna's second outfit was a simpler judge wrapper, more loosely tied for ease of movement while dancing, paired with a lighter yet still beautiful blouse. She also carried a decorative fan. Izuna opted for a lighter traditional shirt and donned a beaded cap. However, before the dancing could begin, there was one final matter to address: the presentation of the bride price. In Iyo culture, the bride price is typically settled privately, but to honor tradition, a ceremonial presentation was conducted. A large tray filled with items was brought forth by Izuna's relatives. It included bags of rice, tubers of yam, crates of soft drinks, bottles of palm wine, and an envelope containing money. These items constituted the agreed-upon bride price and wedding gifts for the bride's family. One of Mamaju's outspoken aunts feigned a critical inspection of the items. She picked up a yam and squeezed it, prompting laughter. "These yams are too small."
Ha!
"Are we feeding a rabbit or a family?" she exclaimed dramatically. One of his uncles joined in the jest. "Auntie, the yams are merely the appetizer. There is more to come after marriage. Grandchildren enjoy yams rolling in." This elicited hearty laughter and approving nods. The aunt accepted the envelope of money, glanced inside, and quipped, "Huh? Should I count it now, or trust you?" Chick interjected loudly. "Trust? Absolutely. Would we shortchange our in-laws? Never." He mimed, zipping his pocket shut, indicating that the money was sufficient. The aunt wagged her finger at him, yet smiled, and the gifts were formally accepted. Mama Juice interjected, holding Yujuna's hand. "I did not sell my daughter. The bride price is merely a symbol. I present her to this family freely and with love. Treat her well, and we will always remain family." Meza nodded sincerely. "She is now a daughter to me. Do not worry, she is in good hands." With that, the marriage was officially recognized. Izuna and Ojuna were now acknowledged as husband and wife in the eyes of their families and community. The newlyweds then engaged in a beautiful slow dance together in the center of the yard. The drummers transitioned to a melodious love song played on the oja and pot drum. Izuna held Ujuna by the waist as she draped an arm over his shoulder. They moved gently, hardly noticing the crowd surrounding them, lost in each other's gaze. People clapped in rhythm, while some women performed ululations. Chick could not resist playfully interrupting halfway, tapping Izuna on the shoulder. "May I borrow the bride for a dance, dear sir?" He spoke with a formal accent. Yujuna laughed and replied, "All right, one dance with Chiki." Chick took Juna's hand and showcased the funniest dance moves, wiggling his body comically and performing an exaggerated version of traditional dance steps. Yujuna matched his energy, and the crowd erupted in excitement at the performance. Izuna doubled over in laughter along with everyone else. Eventually, the dance floor opened up and everyone joined in the festivities: friends, relatives, young and old. It was a vibrant display of color and sound under the bright afternoon sun. At one point, Yujunga went to change into an even lighter dress, opting for a more modern style with a car print for comfort, while Izuna switched to a simple shirt and trousers. They then continued to mingle among the guests, greeting and thanking everyone who attended. Now it was time for the grand feast to commence, which would carry on into the evening with more music, food, and merriment. The next episode will take us through the feast and the joyous conclusion of the day's celebration. As the sun descended towards the horizon, the wedding celebration at Agiloo reached its peak. Long tables and mats were arranged, overflowing with an array of food. The scent was tantalizing. A rich goosey soup infused with melon seeds and spinach. Spicy jollof rice accompanied by tender pieces of goat meat. Fried plantains, perfectly caramelized to a golden hue. Peppered snail and chicken soya skewers for the adventurous eaters. And, naturally, steaming bowls of fufu and pounded yam, ready to be dipped into various soups. Additionally, there were trays of fresh fruits, including pineapples, mangoes, and oranges, adding a sweet note. On one side, several large clay pots of palm wine were displayed alongside bottles of soft drinks for those who preferred them. A smaller table showcased a beautifully baked cake, a contemporary addition to the traditional feast, adorned with white icing and topped with small figures of a bride and groom, a gift insisted upon by some young women from the church for the couple. The newlyweds, Izuna and Juna, moved around together, greeting guests at each table as a gesture of gratitude for their presence. Every person they approached responded with smiles and blessings. Your father would be so proud," remarked an elderly man, patting her hand. "May your marriage be as sweet as honey," teased Yuna, a family friend. "No more running off, except perhaps to fetch water when your wife calls." This elicited laughter, and Izuna replied with good humor, "I'll fetch water, pound yam, anything she desires." Aduna chuckled, nudging him. "Don't make promises you can't keep in front of witnesses." Meanwhile, Chick was informally assigned the role of MC, Master of Ceremonies, due to his loud voice and talent for entertainment. After filling his plate for energy, as he claimed, he took a wooden spoon and tapped a glass to capture everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed elders, and our wonderful couple, it's time for some words and cake," Chick announced. He invited Mazel to speak first. Maziel stood, raising his cup of palm wine. A hush fell over the crowd as everyone listened intently. "Today," he began, "I am the happiest man in Agilu. I have not only witnessed the union of two hearts, but also the reconciliation of two families. Many of you are familiar with the story by now, how pride and sorrow kept us apart. Yet in the end, love and truth have triumphed." He placed an arm around Izuna, who stood beside him. "My son, you have fought for what is just, and I am immensely proud of you. Yujuna, my daughter," he said, looking at her affectionately, "you have demonstrated strength and patience beyond your years. I wholeheartedly welcome you into our family. May we never allow silence or pride to create a rift between us again." Everyone was moved. Yujuna stepped forward and, to everyone's astonishment, embraced Matsi gently. This rare display of affection in such a formal setting touched everyone's hearts, prompting louder applause. Next, Mama was invited to speak. She held her daughter's hand as she began. "I want to express my gratitude to everyone who supported these two throughout their journey. Some of you offered advice, some prayed, and some provided necessary admonitions." She exchanged a knowing glance with a few of her sisters who had initially cautioned against the relationship, but ultimately, "We are gathered here in joy." "Izuna," she turned to him, "thank you for your perseverance. I now see what a remarkable man you are, and I am delighted to call you my son." Izuna bowed respectfully, replying, "Thank you, Mama." Mama continued, "They say it takes a village to raise a child. It also requires a village to nurture a marriage. I hope all of you will continue to guide these two, and also learn from them. I have learned that sometimes children can impart wisdom to their elders about what truly matters." This statement resonated with many, earning nods and applause as villagers reflected on the truth of her words given recent events. Chick then announced that it was time for the cake cutting. Although cake was not traditional, it was well received. Izuna Junwa stood behind the table, together gripping a knife to slice a small piece of cake, as everyone counted. 1, 2, 3, cut. They shared bites of food with one another amidst the chairs. Isa playfully dabbed a bit of icing on Juna's nose, prompting her to shriek with laughter, after which she teasingly pursued him with a dollop of icing on her finger until he allowed her to smear it on his cheek. The crowd found their playful behavior charming. Eventually, Chick declared, "All right, enough of the talking. Let's eat and dance," which was met with enthusiastic agreement. People either lined up to get food or were served at their tables. The band began to play lively tunes once more, and soon a spontaneous dance session erupted. It is not uncommon at such events for eating and dancing to occur simultaneously, with someone perhaps chewing on meat while swaying their feet to the rhythm. Chick made it his mission to sample everything available. He sat at a table with a gigantic plate that held a bit of every dish. Chick admonished one of his sisters, saying, "Your stomach is not a storage bin. Be careful." He simply grinned and replied, "Leave me alone. Oh, today is special. I'm eating for today and tomorrow." Nearby, A group of young men showcased a brief masquerade dance. One individual donned a mask and a raffia costume, captivating the audience with his nimble movements. This surprise addition brought a cultural flair to the marriage celebration. The masquerade dancer even approached the couple, blessing them by dancing around them before dramatically bowing. Izuna discreetly slipped the masquerade dancer a small tip, as was customary, and the performer exited with a flourish. As evening descended and the sky transformed into a velvety purple, lanterns and small electric lights powered by a generator that Matsi had for special occasions illuminated the compound. Fireflies contributed their own sparkle to the enchanting scene. Some of the older guests began to take their leave as night fell, offering their final congratulations. However, many younger attendees and close friends remained to continue the festivities into the night. A circle of friends gathered around Iona and Ojuna, clapping and singing an impromptu song celebrating love and fortune. Yujin Noa was encouraged to perform a solo dance in the center, showcasing her elegant steps as the crowd cheered. Subsequently, she invited him to join her, and he attempted his best traditional dance moves, which, to be frank, appeared somewhat stiff in comparison to hers. CH, in a good-natured manner, came to his aid by jumping in and humorously exaggerating the moves, eliciting laughter. Eventually, it was time for the couple to be escorted to their new home, which, for the time being, was actually a newly constructed extension of Matsi Iod's compound, as tradition typically required the bride to move into the groom's family residence. However, Matsi Iod had thoughtfully arranged a separate, cozy hut within the compound for them, allowing for privacy and a sense of ownership over their space. A small procession of close family members accompanied them from the reception area to this new hut, singing a gentle, joyful song. Mama Mao carried a lantern to illuminate their path, while Matsi held a basket filled with food and gifts to present to them. At the entrance of their new home, Yujin Noa and Izuna knelt briefly for a final parental blessing. Mama placed her hands upon their heads, wishing, "May your marriage be fruitful and full of understanding." Matsi echoed this sentiment, saying, "May you enjoy many happy years and have many healthy children." Chick, standing behind them, added in a whisper loud enough to provoke laughter, "And may at least one of those children be named after the great Chick." Yujin burst into laughter, and even Mama Mao shook her head with a smile. "This Chick will never change," Yuna grinned and responded, "We will consider it, Chick. Perhaps the goat we acquire as a pet will bear your name." Laughter erupted among everyone, and Chick placed a hand over his heart, declaring, "I will accept that. Even a goat named Chick is an honor." Amidst all the laughter and affection, the families embraced and bid each other good night. Yujin Noa and Izuna entered their new home, closing the door as the others departed to allow them some rest. Before leaving, Mama and Matsi exchanged heartfelt smiles, a sight that seemed unimaginable just weeks prior. At last, there was peace. The celebration gradually came to a close. Guests departed in groups, some joyfully singing wedding songs as they made their way home beneath the moonlight. A few helpers remained to tidy up, although Matsi had urged that the majority leave the more strenuous cleaning for the following day. This evening was meant for relaxation. Chick, feeling quite full and slightly drowsy from the palm wine and festivities, collapsed onto a bench. His mother nudged him. "Come on, Chick, it's time to head home." He patted his stomach and sighed contentedly. "This has been the best wedding ever. I ate, I danced, and I even almost got married in jest." He chuckled to himself before letting out a large yawn.
"Come on, Mama.
Just let me savor the thought of that jollof one more time." His mother rolled her eyes and pulled him up. "Before you dream of jollof, get up and go to bed." As the compound emptied and the music finally faded, Agilu village embraced the tranquility of the night. Yet, a unique sense of satisfaction lingered in the atmosphere. An old grievance had been resolved. Two hearts had united, and the entire community basked in its warmth. The moon illuminated the night sky, as if watching over the rooftops of huts, including that of Izuna and Ojuna's new residence. Inside, the couple sat together on their mat, weary yet joyful, reminiscing about the day's happenings and softly laughing at the amusing moments. "Can you believe it's all over, and we are truly married now?" Yujuna whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. Izuna kissed her forehead. "It's merely the beginning, not the end," he gently corrected. "The start of our forever."
She beamed at this.
Yes, our forever. Outside their window, a soft breeze stirred the leaves of the mango tree, as if the spirits of their ancestors were exhaling in satisfaction. The starry sky above appeared to twinkle a bit more brightly over Agulu that night, while the sounds of distant crickets and the occasional bleating of goats provided a lullaby for a village at peace. The love story of Yujunua and Izuna had become the talk of the town, not as gossip or scandal, but as a beloved narrative of resilience and reconciliation. As everyone finally succumbed to slumber, they were aware that Agulu would greet the new day with hearts slightly more open and valuable lessons learned. A few weeks following the grand wedding, life in Agulu transitioned into a pleasant normalcy. However, the positive impact of Yujuna and Izuna's union continued to resonate throughout the community. One sunny afternoon, Matsi Eza's compound buzzed with life once more, but this time it was not due to any crisis or formal occasion, rather a simple family gathering. Beneath the shade of the mango tree, a table was adorned with food and beverages. Mama was engaged in friendly conversation with one of Matsi's sisters. Yujuna and Izuna were seated together on a bench, embodying the essence of happy newlyweds as they exchanged glances and smiles. Chick, naturally, was also present because where there was food and companionship, there was Chick. They were commemorating the completion of a new building on the land that had been returned to Mamauju. With the support of Matsi Izad and the assistance of the community, a modest yet sturdy two-room house had been erected there. The intention was for Mama to return to her own land, conveniently located just a short walk from Matsi Aod's compound. Yujuna and Izuna also planned to occasionally stay there, effectively ensuring that the families remained close while still having their own space. 2 new beginnings. Matsi Izad raised a glass of palm wine in a toast. Everyone lifted their cups, with water or juice for those who had indulged in enough palm wine for the time being, including Chick, who claimed he was still recuperating from the wedding festivities. They toasted to that, and Mama added, "To family," raising her cup once more, resulting in more clinking and drinking. She munched on a meat pie, a new treat courtesy of a relative who owned a bakery in town, and sighed contentedly. I could become accustomed to peace and gatherings like this. No more secret letters or midnight escapes, please." Yuna chuckled, "I assure you. No more running, except perhaps for errands on behalf of my wife." Yujuna playfully nudged him. "And you excel at those, dear husband." Matsi Easy shook his head, chuckling softly. If someone had told me a year ago that we would all be gathered here like this, I would have chased them off my property for spinning tales." Mama Yu nodded, inhaling deeply the warm afternoon air. It serves as a reminder that regardless of how long one clings to resentment, life can still bring unexpected joys. In our case, it has surprised us with something truly wonderful. The older relatives drifted into their own discussions, and at one point, Mama excused herself to check on the final touches of her new house, taking one of Matsi's sisters with her. This left Izuna, Yujuna, Matsi, Izad, and Chick seated around the table. Matsi Easy turned to Chick with a smile. "Chick, now that these two have settled down, perhaps we should focus on finding you a wife." Yujuna and Izuna exchanged amused glances. "Me a wife? Oh, Pap.
No Heri, no Heri.
I am still just a young boy." He laughed nervously. Yujuna chuckled. "Young boy? You who can devour a mountain of fufu. Do you really think you are small?" Izuna added playfully. "Besides, we need to find someone who can cook as much as you consume, Chick. That search might take some time." Chick raised his hands in surrender. "Please, let's not make me the project. Grant me at least another year of bachelor freedom, and Mama would provide free meals before you push me to the altar." They all laughed. Matsi Ezjo relished the light-hearted exchange, observing how comfortable and close everyone had become. Just then, One of the village youth messengers approached the entrance and called out in that manner. "Greetings. I bring a message from the Igu." They all turned with interest. Matsi Easy gestured for the young man to come closer. The messenger cleared his throat, clearly thrilled to deliver this news. The Igwe is inviting the families of Matsi Easy and Madame Obianju to the New Yam Festival next month as special guests of honor. He states that the tale of your reconciliation has brought honor to the community, and he wishes for you to share a few words of wisdom at the festival for everyone to hear. Izuna and Yujunwa beamed with joy.
What a true honor this is.
The Igu's New Yam Festival is the most significant event of the year, and being highlighted signifies that their story has genuinely made a difference.
Mozzie es grindvaidli.
Inform His Highness. We are profoundly honored and will gladly attend and speak. As the messenger departed, Yuma exclaimed with joy, "This is fantastic, Papa. Mamoju will be thrilled." Yujuna joined her hands together. It means a great deal that our village recognizes a lesson in what transpired. If our story can assist others in avoiding such conflicts or aid in their healing, that would be the greatest reward. Chick joked, "I should start calling you both Odogu and Lolo now that you are becoming village celebrities." "Oh." Juna playfully swatted him. "Don't start that." Yuna smiled. "Perhaps we should enlist Chiki to assist us with a speech. He can provide the culinary perspective on reconciliation." Chicken nodded enthusiastically, playing along with the jest. Yes, I will inform the entire village. If you harbor grudges, food does not digest well. However, if you forgive, everything tastes better." He rubbed his belly, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Maze wiped tears of joy from his eyes, astonished at how far they had come. After the merriment, people gradually dispersed to their late afternoon activities. Mazel had some tasks to complete, and Chick wandered off to assist an uncle with something. After packing a few extra meat pies for the journey, Ia and Yujuna chose to take a stroll through the village. Hand in hand, they walked past the market stalls where traders greeted them warmly. The fishmonger even presented them with a fresh fish, saying it was for their beloved couple. They passed by the stream where Needy had once confronted Yujunwa. That memory now seemed far away. Needy, by the way, had indeed gone to stay with her aunt in Noga City. Rumor has it that she might start a business there. They parted on amicable terms, and Yujuna genuinely wished her well. As they walked past the stream, Yujuna spoke softly. "This is where Needy threatened me, and Mama came to my aid." Izuna squeezed her hand.
Much has changed.
"I hope Needy discovers her own path. Perhaps city life will expand her horizons." Ojuna nodded. At least she has moved on and caused no further issues. It must have been difficult for her to set aside her pride as well. They arrived at the old Udala tree, the exact location where they had met on the night of their elopement. They paused there, standing in the same place where they had once felt fear and uncertainty. Now they stood in hope and joy. "We have come full circle," Yujuna reflected. "From this point, we ran away, and now we have returned here." Yuna turned to her and gently lifted her face. "And I would run away and back 1,000 times as long as it concludes with you by my side like this." Yujunwa smiled and rose on her toes to give him a brief kiss, a gentle expression of love and contentment. An elderly woman passing by chuckled at the sight of them. "Young love, carry on, but remember to come up for air." They both laughed and thanked her, feeling slightly shy, yet not enough to part from each other. In the sky, the late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the gully's fields. They observed farmers returning home, children playing with a makeshift ball near the large community hall, and smoke wafting from kitchen huts as evening meals were being prepared. "Home," Yujunwa said, resting her head on Izuna's shoulder as they relaxed after the meal. "The best journeys often have bumpy paths," Izuna replied, stroking her hair. "But that is what makes reaching the destination so rewarding." Yujuna looked up at him with a playful grin. "Since when did you become a philosopher?" That sounds like something Chick would say, except he would add a bit about food. Izuna laughed. "True. He would probably say, the best journeys have rocky roads, so you need a hearty lunch for strength." They shared a warm laugh, careful not to disturb the baby inside. Eventually, they withdrew indoors where Odish rested soundly on a mat nestled between his two affectionate grandmothers. Indeed, grandmothers. For Maz's elder sister had moved in with them, and she and Mama Yu resembled two caring mother hens tending to the little boy during the day and sharing gossip at night. Before Eugenia succumbed to slumber, she reflected on the proverb the elder had mentioned. It was precisely the one that had lingered at the outset of her journey with Azuna. And it had indeed materialized. Not in a grim, tragic manner, but rather in a beautiful,
restorative way.
Because the past had not been addressed, it found its resolution through them, the children. However, contrary to the foreboding tone the saying implied, in their situation, it was not vengeance that the past sought, but reconciliation. Perhaps that was the true essence all along. If one generation fails to rectify its errors, fate will compel the subsequent generation to amend them in one form or another. In their instance, love was the instrument that fate opted to employ. With that reassuring thought, Eugenia closed her eyes, confident in the understanding that the past was mended, the present was abundant with love, and the future would shine brightly for the next generation. Agilu rested peacefully, its elders satisfied, its youth motivated, and its children, like little Odish, liberated to flourish without the burden of old resentments. Thus concludes the narrative of Eugenia, a tale articulated in straightforward language for all to comprehend. A narrative of love that triumphed over pride, truth that vanquished secrets, and a small village that grasped a significant lesson, that love is most potent when hearts are sincere, and that the bravery to forgive can mend even the most profound wounds. The moral of the story is that concealed truths and pride can obliterate peace for many years, even for those who have committed no wrong. When elders decline to heal their past, the anguish does not vanish. It lingers and subsequently impacts their offspring. Love can endure adversity, but secrets inflict suffering upon love. Pride renders individuals harsh, whereas humility fosters healing. When the truth is ultimately revealed and forgiveness is embraced, families are mended, communities achieve tranquility, and the upcoming generation is liberated from past suffering. This narrative imparts the lesson that honesty, forgiveness, and bravery surpass hatred, envy, and silence. Thank you for viewing this remarkable tale on African Stories by V. If you appreciated it and felt motivated by their journey, kindly express your support by clicking the like button, sharing it with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To discover more captivating stories and gain insights into various cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V. Additionally, remember to activate the notification bell so you never overlook a new story. Your support is invaluable and aids us in delivering more stories to you. Until we meet again, remain connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.